Good morning, Rob, and welcome to another episode of Laneway Talks. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Vince. Good morning to you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Early this morning?
Yeah, we are getting in a bit early. A bit of construction going on around here, so there might be a bit of banging going on around us. Now, I've got some stats that I wanted to go over with you this week. I know there's a few things you wanted to, bring up, some more of the, I suppose, heritage and classic rock and whatever. But as I put my glasses on and I'm able to read, and it revolves around streaming and some results worldwide on streaming. And I'm going to be very interested to see what your take on this is, because there's some changes coming. And in general, streaming is up. Streaming is up 15% internationally. Okay, in the first 6 months of this year.
Wow.
The issue though becomes, as we all know, as the US sneezes, we catch a cold. That old statement, right?
Bless you.
Yeah, and they are ahead of us. We're usually about 2 years behind them in music, always have been. And the issue is that in the USA, they've started to see a massive slowdown in that same period. So,
Okay.
all right, so we've got a worldwide increase of 15%, probably a lot of countries, third world countries coming on too, I would suspect. And, they're still growing, but your developed and very mature is starting to go back. Now, some of there was only really two reasons they came up why that's occurring in the US. And one of them was cost of living crisis. So
There's that phrase again.
Yeah.
It's a catchphrase of the time, isn't it?
Yeah, cost of living crisis. So are kids, because it's mostly kids, are they therefore pulling back on either premium or on their data, on their phone and all that kind of jazz? There's also, is there music fatigue with that bracket of your 18 to 24s or 18 to 34s?
Music fatigue.
Yeah, music fatigue. So there's so much music available to them, and there's so many genres and new genres that, this could be becoming a real issue. Now, I want to get your take on that, Rob, and what you think about that.
Music is wallpaper now. That phrase is used quite often. I think because everything is instant, you don't have to go and hunt for it anymore. So I think maybe the listening public, the younger generation, are just getting bored with the vanilla quality of what that music is, whereas I refer back to our day, we used to have to go use our own money or get money from our parents and go to the record store and pick out an album of an artist either you heard on the radio or you liked the album cover, the look of it. You'd put it on in the record store and have a bit of a listen and go, yeah, I like that. And you'd come home and you'd listen to the whole thing and you were focused on one album. You didn't have a collection of millions of songs to try and choose from.
Well, not just songs, Rob, not just songs. So what would you do?
I'm just talking about music specifically.
But it's not just songs. So they have an array of attention-grabbing either technologies or day-to-day whatever.
Distraction.
And we didn't have that. So I know what I used to do. We used to congregate as mates. We'd go to someone's house, you rotate, you get that out, that vinyl, go through their vinyl and you'd put it on and you'd all sit down and you'd listen to that record. And that was a daily occurrence for us. Now, what else did you have? Free-to-air television and a phone that was at the front door.
So, that's it. It was.
Yeah. So
run up the passage to answer the phone.
Yeah, So, you had your music in the sense of, I was a drummer and, if you were a guitarist or whatever. There's all that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you've got all that today. So now let's bring in all those other distractions, as you put them. And I think the music fatigue gets there a lot quicker than what it would in the past. And you're right, what's available to them just in the music itself is fatiguing. You can get mesmerised.
Yeah. Do you think also the way it's been sold, as in the music business or being in a band or playing music, do you think it's been oversold to a point where everybody thinks that they've got a shot, like with programs like The Voice and, all those competition shows? I mean, there used to be that when we were kids, those singing shows and band shows, variety shows that were on, and bands would come on and do things. But I think everyone thinks it's easy to succeed in the music business these days. All you've got to do is do, a couple of videos on YouTube and you'll be famous. But
I agree with you. I agree with you, mate.
Something to do with that?
Yeah. Everybody, I was only telling this to someone the other day, one particular major road I ride down on my motorbike, and on the billboard it's got one of these private school billboards that, every child is special and can excel, and the future is yours, and all that. And it's, well, everybody's going to be the Prime Minister. And I think that's what's driven down the throat of kids these days. You're special. You're special in your own way, and you will, you're going to be absolutely terrific. Whereas we know what the reality of the world is, and the economy, and where your place will be. And that ramifies right across, I think, to what you just said, to the music business, where, oh, yeah, you've got a shot. No, you sound fantastic. I have this issue with artists on Laneway Music regularly, where I say to them, do not come to me and tell me your friends told me the song's fantastic. Because they're going to tell you it's fantastic.
You got it.
None of them are going to tell you it doesn't sound any good. So I got something sent to me last night for a listen and said, I just want your opinion. Is it worth pursuing this particular song, right? And I wrote back and said, it's a bit boring. They had a bit of kibosher on that song. So, but your friends wouldn't tell you that. Would.
Yeah,
I don't know that they would.
Yeah, I ponder this a lot, and I've been thinking about it over the week, just as far as addressing what we talk in Laneway Talks. But there's a process that I think happens with, for me, I can only base it on my own experience, but the more you have a peer review, like an educated peer review of your musical compositions, the songs that you write, I think being peer reviewed and having the reality of that, whether that be from a record company executive, or whether it be at school through a music teacher, or whether it be through an organised institution, that form of analysis probably been watered down a little bit more than it used to be back in the day. But these days, everyone's an expert, and the reality is they're not. They're not qualified. They haven't had the experience, and everyone's got an opinion, but it's just the depth and the knowledge behind that opinion that is critical to people understanding, whether they're doing something is good or,
Well, nothing's changed, Rob, in that, yes, you can succeed in the music business. Firstly, you've got to have talent. Now, you've got to have talent. And I've never said a fantastic song or a super talented person is the only one that will get a number one. I mean, we can get a number one with something, I suppose, fairly average. But what would come with that is the hard work. So you are never going to get away from the hard work that's required. So can that child or young adult, have a career in the music business? Well, yeah, okay. But it's no different to going down to working in some company and rising to the top through hard work. It's exactly the same. Hard work.
It is. Yeah. But I think there's a perspective of when you start at the bottom and you have to come through those ranks, you see the daily drudgery of how much work is just exactly that. It's not a fun thing.
Yeah,
Never
absolutely.
has been.
Yeah,
If
you're right.
someone's selling you the fact that, work is glorious and it's always enjoyable, well, I'll give you the tip. I don't really reckon it is.
No. No. Look, so I'll go back to these stats, right? And
Yep.
so Australia, 69% of revenue in the music business is via streaming. 7.8 million Australians subscribe to a video on demand. All right, but the interest in podcasts and books is going up. Global growth driven. So if I just go back to that one there, 7.8 million Australians subscribe to video on demand.
Yeah, that's good.
I had here though, but that's video on demand. Okay. Then I had YouTube Music Premium 100 users, Spotify 20. So Australian Spotify users, right, to correlate this to that, is there's 12.5 million Spotify users in Australia of a population of, what are we, 26 mil or something?
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a lot. 48% of households had paid a music subscription. Now, so we've got to pull it back to see what's happening here, and that we now know that in America, Spotify are starting to go backwards in their rate of increase. So we've got saturation. But YouTube Music is now the number one most adopted. So they've got a rate of increase which is higher, way outside of Spotify. Now, to me, that's a twofold. Yes, they've got the music, and plus they've got the video, so they put the two together, and it's a much more compelling and cheaper formula. I'm subscribed to Spotify, even though I don't like it, and I'm going to come off that. I'm going to come off Spotify Premium, and I'm going to go to YouTube Premium, which is $16.99. So it's nearly $10 cheaper a month.
Wow.
So, YouTube Music and Premium had 100 million users, but now let's get it back into perspective.
Yep.
Spotify have got 246 million users. So
say that again. YouTube have
100 million. So their rate of increase of take-up is a lot higher, but they're still way behind. Now, in America, Spotify and Apple are 50-50. In Australia, 70% is Spotify. So different territories have got hugely different results and take-ups. So one of the things that they're talking about, and which I've been reading about and I've been seeing in Spotify, is new features. So, personalised listening data features they generate your day list. And there's a few things like this coming up. There's AI coming up. There's a new premium deluxe feature coming with Spotify where you will be able to stream higher quality audio. So they've always had it, but of course it costs because it's data, so they're not going to give it to you. So there's all these kind of things, these new, add-ons to try and get you to subscribe or stay on there. So
heaven forbid we don't have high quality audio.
Well, Laneway Red, which I'll bring up on the screen now, right? So Laneway Red is up, and Laneway Red does stream high quality audio, and you can download high quality audio, waves, and MP3s. Okay. So we've got these. So we pull this all together. This little topic that I started with this morning to say that there is some real issues with streaming take up, but it does say there that Spotify are turning over $6 billion with $500 million in profit. So there has to be a saturation point at some point, doesn't there, Rob? You know,
It does. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it can't keep going. I also have an economics degree. I've got a couple of degrees, but I've got an economics degree too. And I used to have a real chuckle. I know like using that word. I used to have a real chuckle with. Let me just go back and get back on here. I used to have a real chuckle about, growth in the economy, or what corporations, let's even use public corporations, listed on the stock exchange, and what growth they were chasing. And I used to really laugh about it to people because, companies go, we're heading towards double-digit growth. Well, you know what double-digit growth means, don't you? Double-digit growth means every 10 years I should increase 100%. Well, that's what it means to me.
Okay.
Well, how the hell does that happen? Every 10 years, 100% bigger. Well, that doesn't work.
Where do they get these stats from, though? What are they based on?
Well, no, those stats are based on, which stats are you referring to? Double-digit growth?
Double-digit growth, yeah.
Well, companies would report that. So, you get into reporting season for public companies, and they would say, we've had a great year. We're hitting, our KPIs were set at double-digit growth, which is 10%. We hit 9.8, but we think we'll get 10.5 next year. And I'm thinking, hey, that's insanity growth. What comes with that is this situation of corporations get bigger and bigger and smaller ones get smaller and smaller or thrown out. So you have big corporates running the world or the economy. And that's not a good thing because that's monopolisation. And that means, I'm just talking in general here, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. You need that middle ground. You need, the middle, what we call the SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. Anyway, it just going to that double-digit growth. So then I think about the music here and I think, well, how can you keep going at double-digit growth? There were some figures that were brought up about, CD and vinyl. I keep banging on about this, and there is government grants coming out at the moment, and they actually bring in, if you're doing, you will help you subsidise CD and vinyl, and even if they're, if you look at a greener, green inputs into them and all, there is no green inputs into CD and vinyl. They are environmentally unfriendly, and they should be banned. And that's the way it is because, we need to move on. And if we truly want to be environmental, well, then you would ban them. But we're not truly, because I've said this before on this podcast, a CD will take 1,000 years to break down if you threw it into the dirt. That means it never breaks down. That's terrible, isn't it?
Well, just thinking, what if someone listens to it for 1,000 years? It goes generation to generation. You'd never have to make another CD again, would you?
Well, you wouldn't, would you? But fact is, they'll be manufacturing another 10 billion of the things, and 9 billion of them will go into landfill because we used to put them into landfill. The amount of CDs we used to throw out back when I was with, Mushroom and with Shock was for pallet loads every bloody month. Loads.
When I was working at EMS in the 70s, the same thing with returns, the amount that we used to, we'd put them back into the crusher and remake records of them. But, because I used to have to pop out labels and count
when you say that, put them in the crusher and remake records. There was one company that was crushing the CD covers, the plastic covers, and then they would heat it up and they would make it into different products. They went broke. That was the end of that. Back into landfill.
Yeah, that's what new business or, government...
That should be a government initiative to run because the government is here as a public servant for us, society, who vote them in. So if we can't get private enterprise to do it, because it's obviously not profitable, so nobody wants to do it. Therefore, it's a government responsibility. But as we know, there is no government on earth that wants any responsibility of running anything for us. They try and outsource everything. So, you're not going to get that. So that recycling there is just laughable. And so, that's why I'm anti CD and vinyl.
Yeah. But as I said, we used to do that. We used to recycle it and remake old records into new records.
Yeah, but that disappeared, mate. It didn't last for 10 seconds,
Yeah, I know. The
disappeared.
company I worked for did disappear, and, it's the only or the biggest independent record company in South Australia. We had JB Records, we had Hamard,
remember them?
EMS.
Yeah.
Well, that was all us. I worked for that company. They had interstate connections as well, but we used to manufacture all those.
But think about it around the world, Rob. I want you to take away from South Australia and think those returns. Well, we used to have here. Now let's put it into a global sense. Imagine how much there was this. We used to send them to Indonesia, which should have been banned because they were taking it because we'd pay them to take it and to put it into landfill. So they were getting container loads of CDs to put into landfill. Now that's not on. They stopped it in the end.
So just a point on that. Why were they coming back? Were they not being sold?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So we manufacture.
Did they come up?
Well, there's
did
two.
They come off the top 40 sales? Like, we sold 1,000 last week, but we got 500 back, so I've only actually sold 500.
Well, two things. One is return. So we'd get at least 20% returns. All right, at least 20%. If you put out 100,000, 20,000 coming back. And secondly, if we manufactured 50,000, because we've got to have the stock to get on the charts, all right, and we only shipped 30, and then it wasn't a hit, so we're going to get 20% back of the 30,000, and we've still got 20,000 in the warehouse. Now, we had big warehouses, and we couldn't sustain keeping this stuff, so we had to get rid of it quickly. All right. Anyway, we don't want to dwell on that too much because younger people wouldn't actually understand what we're talking about because it's a thing of the past. So, okay, so that was just some stats I had, Rob, which were interesting, isn't it, where we're going with streaming. So let's see in the next 6 months.
So, yeah.
Now, you wanted to bring up some things about more, I suppose, heritage music or whatever. And can I add one thing before you start?
Sure.
Yesterday, I needed some music to keep me going because I was so heavily laden with work, and I thought, I want to listen to Trapeze. Now, you know Trapeze, don't you?
I do, Tommy Bolan.
No, not Tommy Bolan. Glenn Hughes and Mel Galley, right? And
which was before Tommy Bolan.
Yeah, exactly. And anyway, the some undiscovered recordings, and demos. And just sensational. I just got excited and got on the drum kit and had to play to them. Anyway, that was my first bit on the drum kit for a while, and I thought Rob's going to love this because I've got the vibe back. So
motivation.
Yeah. But there you go. There's just so much music and a band that got stuff out but new, undiscovered. Anyway, I'll hand over to you, Rob.
Yeah, I chatted to you earlier on the week. I was listening once again to Rick Beato on his Sunday session that he puts up, and he just talking about his career and failures and the process that he went through. And what we were talking about before, why did we go and see bands when we were kids? Because people were talking about them at school. When we were at school, and I'm talking about high school, so for me that started in 73, we had bands from Cold Chisel, Iron Knob, Stars, all the local Adelaide bands used to come to the schools.
Yeah, had the same thing. I was in your era, so I know exactly what you're saying. At lunchtime, we'd have bands.
At lunchtime, you'd have bands. Yeah. And then they would be doing gigs on the weekends at the town halls. And so we'd all go and see that. So you've got all these teenagers seeing the bands that were coming up through the ranks, but you'd actually go, well, I like Stars and I like Ted Mulry and I like Cold Chisel. So I'd go to the gigs and then I'd sort of read in music magazines that we used to get from record stores, or you'd get them distributed through other means. And you see that they've got an album coming out. So there was that anticipation to, go, wow, well, I want to go and buy that record because I saw them live. I like the band. And I bought the record. So that whole process was, I want to play in a band. So you start playing songs that you liked, like, we play everything from Hush, Ted Mulry, AC/DC. I mean, we saw AC/DC as well at, town halls.
Yeah, I did the same, yeah.
Yeah, but that process doesn't exist anymore now.
I'm going to just cut in, right?
Sure.
Something we've spoken about in past 3-4 shows was, the grants being given out and all that kind of stuff. But what about, I think I brought it up, what about the government should be, or councils putting on free live music shows, and you will get people there. And as opposed to subsidising festivals and whatever, how about you put on some free shows, all right? And I just saw yesterday the Queensland government putting on at Surf, I think it's in Surface, I think it's a country show over 2 days or whatever, and all artists free. Okay, so it's free, subsidised by the that I like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea.
And we need to get back to more of that, even though what you're talking about, when we used to do them at the local town hall on a Saturday afternoon, I had to pay $1 to get in. But, okay.
It was $1 or $2, but, that was affordable. I mean, you didn't drink because they weren't licensed, so.
Well, I was too young anyways. I was like 14, and you'd go there.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, you were, yeah.
So, I think that, what you're talking about is, that doesn't exist anymore. And trying to do an underage show is a very difficult task in this insurance-based economy. Got me?
Yeah, I do. Well, I'm going through the same process this week. I've got a drum corps that you probably know that I run over here, which is, we've got 16 members, and we do the Christmas pageant every year over here, which is a big thing because we're performing to 300,000 people in the streets of Adelaide, and it goes live all the way around the world. So it's a big deal. But the paperwork that I spent like 4 hours doing paperwork for it yesterday, just on insurance, child protection. I've got, I ran certifications. I've got my working with children tricks. But I don't think people realise how much time there is in bureaucracy because of insurance companies and things.
Well, let's put it across to venues. So,
it's the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, you go to the venues, they don't want to have underage shows because of the coverage they need on insurance. So they don't even want to run an underage show. Right?
I know.
Of course, beer sales aren't going on, so they're not making that money either.
Bring that back when you say about governments should be funding, local government should be funding music. Well, go back to what I was just talking about when we were at school. Who paid for those bands to come round to our schools and play at lunchtime? It must have been because I went to a government school.
Well,
that must have been the government that subsidised that.
Absolutely, they must have been.
Why doesn't that still happen with local artists today?
I'm with you. I think culturally it's a benefit, and on an arts basis it's a benefit, and on a creativity basis it's a benefit to the kids.
Yeah.
But, mate, I can't answer that one because I don't know enough about education.
I mean, on a small scale, I do that with my school. I put on bands a couple of times a year. The kids perform at them. They get inspired. They get to see what more accomplished players are capable of, so it gives them the motivation. And then you start to see the reality of organising your own gigs, setting up your gear, getting good quality gear that sounds good because, you can't buy a $500 drum kit or a $300 guitar that's going to sound great. you have to do some work to get them to sound great. So that learning process is very, very important as well. And it comes back to what we said at the start of the show. It's not instant. People think it's instant. They see someone performing at a really high level. They go, well, I can do that in, 6 months. No, you can't. It's like 10 years.
Absolutely.
Before you get a full, and there's a lot of experience, but you need the opportunity to be able to do that, I think, and that's very, very important. Which, as I said, it comes back to what Beato was talking about. He went through the whole process for him. I spoke to you this week, the amount of times that we went to perform showcase gigs for record companies, and got passed over, the amount of times you had conversations, with people like Molly or Gadinsky or Blanchfield or John Woodruff. In my own experience, I've got a box full of knockbacks and letters from our lawyer. That just all comes down as experience, and you don't give up. You just keep going and get a little bit better every time. So I don't think they realise that's the process too, because there's a lot of knockbacks, a lot of failures, but you've got to get up and keep going. And it doesn't happen overnight on The Voice.
No, that's right. Well, on the note of The Voice, I'm not. I suppose I'm not anti The Voice, but I don't ever watch it or any of those shows, because all they cherish on those shows are when those people do those high notes. When they do the big high,
vocal gymnastics.
Yeah, and they do that, and everybody gets up and they go crazy. And it's like, so that's what it's all about, Anyway, that's my take on it, is that's what they do. I suppose it's a way for someone to get somewhere. You try anything you can to get somewhere.
I know, yeah. Well, I imagine if Bob Dylan came on to The Voice and did his solo acoustic thing, Neil Young came onto The Voice.
They go, get off.
they wouldn't last. Did you go, hey, Arlo Guthrie? Or,
yes.
Roger Waters.
Yeah. What about Ian Jury? What about Ian Jury?
Ian Jury, another brilliant artist. Sex Pistols.
Yeah, look, they would, but again, we're been bombarded with music now, and there is that, I think, that they think that I could become a star instantly. There is a lot of that. I actually showed my wife yesterday, because we do TikTok, and I said, and we have to be there. It's a social media outlet. We've got to be there. And every time I go in to put our post up, because it's always it's a video or whatever, I get the same stuff. The young girls dancing around, and doing their thing. Some of them half exposed, half not. And, but this is it. I'm becoming a star. And it's, I can do it on TikTok and become an influencer. Look, you and me take it from, it's about music, and it's about delivering that music to an audience, or your core audience, and then building that core audience to a sustainable long-term career audience. And, that is just repetitious hard work. Some of the things I come across with Laneway, Rob, is that, you sign an artist and I say, what have you been doing for the last 20 or 30 years? Because, they haven't had a record out. And they go, life got in the way. And look, I'm happy, because I think they're good artists, to give them an opportunity now and to deliver their music. But there's so much lost opportunity by those artists over those years that, they've lost, trying to develop an audience at a later age is so much more difficult. In those stats I was mentioning earlier, in the show, there is some extra fluff to all of that, in that, how are we getting the older audience to adopt online streaming? And it is happening, but at a much slower rate. And podcasts and audible books are the fastest growing in that sector, right? So, that's a good thing, that that older generation are getting into it and getting across it, but at a much slower uptake rate. And I can see in our stats with Laneway Music that we used to be slanted quite a lot towards the 50 plus bracket, which is not really good because they don't listen as much. We've now streamlined that from about the age of 24 onwards. And we're getting...
When you say they don't listen as much, it's like they don't listen to streamed music as much. I still think they'd listen to their records and CD.
No, you're right. No, sorry, yes, I want to just clarify that. They don't stream as much. Absolutely. And but the thing is, the streaming is the future, the way music is delivered. So new music is delivered that way. I mean, none of the 80-90% of them don't want to have to come across and buy a CD, have it mailed to them, and then they've got to find a CD player or or vinyl.
Go to a record store. Go to your local music shop or record store.
I don't think, there's none of those, is there? There's only
there is.
Vinyl stores, that's all. And
there's plenty of them.
Yes, sure. Not here in Melbourne, there's not. Most of them most of them going out of business. So, there can only be so many to cater for such a small uptake. And so, when they were getting excited, about 5 to 7 or 8 years ago, they were popping up everywhere. But you just had to have a look at the size of the store to see that they couldn't sell enough vinyl to actually sustain their rent and their income, and so they disappear. So only the traditional ones, Vicious Sloth, and there's one over in near the San Remo Ballroom. They're still there. There's there's quite a few of the traditional vinyl stores that have survived, but they've always been there. But the little pop-up ones all disappeared, where it was just a fantasy that I would be, playing my vinyl all day and selling it and earning a living. Well, earning a living, you need to turn over a lot of money, to pay your rent and then pay yourself some income and buy the stock, by the way, because you've got to buy that, and that's not cheap. Look, I think that going back to, I brought up trapeze there, and I just love it, and I implore everybody to go and listen to trapeze because it's fantastic. But to me, because we were conditioned into listening to our styles of music, because that's what we picked back then, where there was far few distractions, and I brought up before that age bracket of 14 to 17 is when you are conditioned into what you consider to be fantastic music. That's when you're conditioned in there. I don't know if that applies as much now, because of that music saturation, and we'll know in the next 10 years. Will they remember all that music that's coming out now? What will they pick? Who will be the artists that are remembered? And
I think a lot of the music that's coming out now is, and I quote from different articles that I read, it's forgettable. I just want to throw in too, while I can, that today is Neil Peart's birthday, from the drummer from Rush. So speaking of a band that from the 70s that had a career all the way through to the noughties. Yeah. That's phenomenal. And, I discovered that band when I came home from rehearsal one night, and my flatmate turned around and hit the VHS and said, "Watch this." And it was Polaroid in Concert, which was on Tuesday night.
I remember that.
And it was Rush, Exit Stage Left. I'd never seen this band before. And I just sat there with my jaw on the ground going, why don't I know who these guys are? Because I remember an interview with Bon Scott, Molly Meldrum did with Bon Scott, and AC/DC were touring in America. And he said, and Molly was asking him where they're touring, what was happening. And Bon said, we're touring with a band that you probably never heard of called Rush. And Molly went, no, I haven't. And Rush were one of the biggest bands touring in America at that stage. They'd come off of the Kiss tour. They were headlining their own tours. And our biggest music guru in Australia had no idea who this band was. And I thought there's a disconnect there. I know we're isolated, but we're also dictated to what was fed into this country through the different channels. And I just want to say, happy birthday to Neil today. It's a posthumous one because he died in 2020, in February 2020. And it was a band that I didn't miss, but then it comes back to, we found that band because of a television show that was playing international acts that were something that we didn't see on mainstream. Polaroid was on at like 10 o'clock at night or something on a Tuesday night, I think.
Yeah, that's right. It was late, that's for sure.
It was late, so you had to stay up late and, watch it because there were a couple of hours because they were concerts. We had Ian Dury and the Blockheads was on that. Even Moving Pictures I saw on that.
Yeah, that's true. I think we've got some of that footage,
Yeah, that was fantastic, that concert, because they were huge at that time too. Because I taped all these because we just bought a VHS video recorder, which was expensive. And so we taped everything so we could rewatch it. But, that doesn't exist anymore now. Everything's available. You can just click on YouTube.
Well, that's right. And it's discoverable, but there's some good parts to that's discoverable. I'm discovering so many. I was watching Warren Zevon the other day, 1978 somewhere.
Werewolves of London.
Yeah, it was one particular show, and it was really good. And I
love that line in that song. He was a hairy-handed gent that ran amok in Kent. What a fabulous line.
Well, it's a great song, but, I'm discovering new things because they come up on our YouTube channel all the time, and you kind of go, wow, I really want to see that because that's a band I like. So there is, everything's more discoverable, but that's part and parcel of everything. And we've got to move ahead. It's, we're living in this age.
Of course.
And we are moving ahead and trying to deliver, I think, heritage artists to, to the public and actually allowing them to record new material too and bring it to the public. Now, again,
as a heritage artist, thank you, Vince, for that.
Yeah.
Heritage artist.
Well, it's a certain audience. And we've got a new band, Uppercut, coming, who the guys are late 40s, but the singer's only in his 20s, late 20s, and it's super hard rock, just on the edging towards some metal occasionally in it. And I think that's fantastic. I'm going to be very interested to see how it goes because the image looks good. I've said to them, we're never going to make you stars because of that age bracket of the rest of the band, but you could really tap into a real cult audience there with that style of music because they've got the right look, the band look right, and the singers, which is really important, but they've got a phenomenal guitarist and bass player, phenomenal. And so I said this, you could really tap into an audience here and so we're going to be very interested. So I find that exciting to do that. You
didn't mention the drummer.
He was really good too. I haven't kind of had to look so much at him yet because I know the other guys, the bass player and the guitarist. Okay. I know them, so I know their style. I know their credibility with their art form, and then you've got Sorrell, who Susan Sorrell, but goes under the name Sorrell, who has just got a new song coming out shortly, and she did more of a pop song as her first song. This one's a more rock-based song because she's more a rock female artist, and we'll see more of her works, and I think she's going to be great. Now, she's early 50s, and I still think she can really tap into her audience because we need more female artists. So, there's some great new material coming out. Of course, we've got plenty of others, but I can't name them all because I can't remember them all. But and we've had one or two artists who've gone off and done deals overseas and had big money offered to them, and they go to us, sorry, but we've got to go. And we just go, but that's what we're here for, is to help you, because we can't give you the big money, but we've resurrected you because you've done nothing for the last 20 years. And that's really inspiring to us because, we get it. They get a big chunk of money. And how would they get it otherwise? They wouldn't. And we've helped them get that chunk of money because we've been promoting them for the last 4 or 5 years. So some really good stuff happening all around, Rob. So, I say to everybody out there, it's never been more vibrant. We're really excited and we're delivering on a daily basis. We cannot keep up. Anyway, that's my rant for the day. You got anything else you'd like to contribute in there?
I just want to say, because I'm selling a lot of books through the shop, which is good. So just please support our YouTube channels. Like we've got Laneway and we've got Rob's Drum Shed, and I'm going to put it here in the thing. Foundations, that's my book. I'm actually doing that, so you can see it. And what I was talking about before with the process of learning going through, I mean, I had the opportunity to record, and later I turned around and I transcribed all those recordings and I put it into a method book for drumming, and it's got our releases on it, which is from the Laneway Live that we did at Musicland. It was 2019. So I've got transcriptions from that. So it's current. And, my students love it, and they're getting good results from playing my music, that I've created. But it was a long process to get through there. So
I would imagine that would be a long process to do that if you've transcribed that into written music.
It is, but it's when you were saying before about artists, what have you been doing for the past 20, 30 years? Well, for me, it's just been a constant journey, and that's what I've been doing.
I'll bring it back to say, so I've got Deep South coming out. We've got a new track coming out. What's Rob Boundy got coming out? And I keep pounding this out each week too, so people are up to date with what we're doing. So what's your new song coming out? You've got a couple of projects, but which is the first one that's going to come out?
I know we've got Another Way coming out. I know the video for Power Hungry I put up. As I said, top the tail of that. And I just finished transcribing Power Hungry as well, which is a bit of a mouthful for me, because I was talking to the guitar player, Jeff, from the Soldiers, and I was saying, there's no guitar solo in this song. He said, the whole song's a guitar solo.
All right.
Which is, that's how hard we played and a lot of notes we played. So you're transcribing that.
But what have you got coming? You got something coming out with Michael, though, haven't you?
We've got, Unclean's coming out with Michael.
How far are we off from listening to that?
Well, it's done. It's just, I've got to record the guitar player playing his solo, because I don't want to put the track out without you being able to see the guitar solo, because I think Rogie's guitar playing on that track's really, really good. So, it's bluesy and dark, and it's a great track.
Any kind of time frame when the people listening may be able to hear it?
I'd give it a month.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I'm talking October release.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Through Laneway. And
that'll be November. That'll be November then, because you'll deliver it in October. Yeah. There's no way we can get it out for 4 weeks. Yeah.
And there's Another Way, which is we're waiting on the clip to be finished.
Is that the one? Is that the one I've got someone working on?
It is, yeah, and that's a great song. I really like that song.
Yeah. I actually might see if I can get you some more clips of what has been worked on there to have a look at, because it is sensational. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So Another Way's coming out, so that's a good one.
Yeah.
And I just keep working on the new music. I've got Ode to Travis, which is one that I'm working on as well with Michael and the boys. So that's due for rehearsal in a couple of weeks. So we're going to shape that out, and I want to go in and record that. So, there's plenty to do.
All right. Well, I'll hit you up next week again and see how we're going with all of that. All right, Rob, it's been great talking to you today, and we haven't heard any construction work around here, so cross your fingers, okay?
You did well.
Yes. We got in early. All right.
We did get in early. Love it. All right.
All right, mate. See you next week.
Thanks. Happy birthday, Neil.
See you, mate. Bye.